For more, let's bring in our guest here. Philip Landon is in Ottawa. He is the president of Universities Canada. We've also got Michael Sangster joining us, Chief Executive Officer of the National Association of Career Colleges. Gentlemen, great to have both of you with us here on Power Play. And Philip, if I can start with you, the bottom line here for Canadian universities in this story, what's the takeaway?
Well, Todd, thanks for the question. Our concern about caps is that it's a overly blunt instrument that's going to impact universities and institutions that are responsible actors in the situation that we're in. And we recognize that there are challenges right now with housing and for all Canadians, and we think that focusing on international students is not the right way to go.
Michael, to you, what do you think the Canadian government needs to realize here from your viewpoint?
Well, I think I'd like to just start the conversation thanking you for the opportunity, and good to see you, Philip. Just to state that we don't think we're actually the problem on the numbers of international students that have come into the country. Less than 10% of the most recent data from IRCC shows the applications going to regulated career colleges in Canada. That being said, we believe all institutions have a role to play in what's going on in making sure we train and educate and immigrate the kind of people we need in this country to drive the economy going forward. So we welcome the government's initiatives, and we're willing to participate in any system they design, and we look forward to working with them more closely on those designs.
Philip, to you, what are you hearing from international students about this issue of a lack of affordable housing?
Well, Todd, Canadian universities take housing for their international students very serious. We have campus supports, wraparound supports that deal with housing, deal with academic issues, deal with mental health issues of students as well. And so the housing issue is one that our universities are taking very seriously. And, you know, there are universities offer about 130,000 beds across the country for students coming in. So the issue of housing is not actually a university issue. It's probably more with other actors.
Michael, back to you, and you talked about working with the federal government for some long-term solutions here. Can you give us a sense of what you think might work to make all sides happy?
Well, I think it's collaboration to start, and I point to an announcement this afternoon in St. John's. I was yesterday in Newfoundland and Labrador, where Kean College and Academy Canada, two of our long-standing members, are working with the College of the North Atlantic and Memorial University to build a robust system of housing in place for the whole province for international and domestic students. We're proud of the work we're doing with different organizations like Forstay and others to make sure there's enough housing in place. I agree with Philip. The housing issue is not a university issue. It's not a college issue. It's a Canadian issue. We've all got to roll up our sleeves and find a way to fix it.
Yeah, we're going to bring back that graphic if we can, just to show our viewers some of the numbers we're talking about. So starting in 2015, about 350,000 international permits were issued. And then you fast forward to 2022, you're at over 800,000. And the latest count for last year, 2023, was at around 900,000. Philip, to you, if those numbers were to be cut dramatically, what would that mean for universities financially?
Yeah, let me just contextualize those numbers for a second, Todd. So of the 900,000, only about 250,000 of those are at Canada's universities. The rest are at colleges, private colleges, and other educational institutions. So Canada's universities have been very careful to grow in a sustainable way. The vast majority of students, of course, on our university campuses are Canadian, but we have sort of on average 10 to 25% of students are international students. And international students bring a wealth of talent, skills, diversity to our campuses and to our communities and to our workforce. So I think anything that starts to look at trying to cut that back, I think is going to make for a weaker campus, a weaker community, and a weaker workforce.
What would it mean for universities' bottom line, though, Philip, financially, if those numbers were to come down?
So I think if they were to come down drastically, it could have an impact. I think folks know that there's been some severe underfunding of universities, particularly in Ontario, but in other provinces as well. And so, yes, international students have been helpful in making up that shortfall as the provincial governments have not taken their responsibility to adequately fund the universities so that they can offer the quality education that we need.
Michael, do you think there's a risk here that international students might be unfairly targeted or scapegoated?
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with Philip's comments about the wealth and the depth of culture, identity, different skill sets these international students bring to our institutions across Canada. They bring great sense of community to Canada, and they're going to deliver on the workforce needs that we need. So I am very concerned about some of that scapegoating that's gone on. I should point out I'm very excited about the minister's approach that he's looking at labor force needs, market needs too, as he looks at immigration and international education, because we need to train for the jobs we need today too.
And Philip, to you for the final question here, what's the message you want people at home watching to know about this issue?
Well, I think what I want them to know about this issue is that Canada's universities are a key driver for our prosperity. Bringing in and international students play a really important part in that, and attracting talent from abroad is very important for the future of this country. So we don't want to put in measures that are going to impact that in any way as we compete in an increasingly competitive world.
Philip Landon and Michael Sangster joining us here on Power Play with their take on the story. Gentlemen, thanks so much for taking the time for us today.